So let's see, how many people do we have here so
We
far?
have about 28 people now.
Okay.
We're still missing about 20 people, but we can get started since it's 2:02. We also want to welcome and thank you, Yuka Nakashima, the Executive Director of FoodShift, and Jen Frankel, Culinary Director of FoodShift, to come join us on Community Zoom Day. We so appreciate it. I am so looking forward to this session. And personally, I love having FoodShift here because of their mission of transforming surplus food into opportunities. And we're so excited on this session.
Thank you, Tina. Let me just get to my next slide here. Hopefully we don't have any technical difficulties. Okay. So a couple of housekeeping things. As Yuka mentioned in the beginning, everyone is going to be muted because we're recording this session. And we are also going to be following up with materials and resources at the end of the event. So don't feel like you need to write everything down. We're going to send you a recipe for the vegetable stock and some additional information. So you can just enjoy yourselves and soak in the information while we're here today. And I will pass it on to Yuka to talk a little bit about introductions and who's here today and presenting.
Hi, I think we're all here to really hear from Chef Jen, so this will be brief. My name is Yuka. I'm the Executive Director for FoodShift. We are a nonprofit program that upcycles the food that are overlooked. So this is surplus food from grocery stores and other places, such as wholesale produce markets. And we haul it back and make sure that they get distributed to people who are in need and in a culturally appropriate manner. And joining me today also from our team is Rizwan Danani, and he's going to be helping with the IT support. And he is the executive in residence.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, Rod.
And without further ado, our chef extraordinaire, Chef Jen Franco, is not only a culinary director, but she also oversees the food recovery alongside our social enterprise manager, Chandler Henry, who's also, I think, in the audience today. So without further ado, Chef Jen is a trained chef who is got a big heart and resourcefulness that's required to be able to cook with recovered food. And today we can learn all the hints from Chef Jen. Take it away, Chef Jen.
Thanks, Yuka. So a little bit about what to expect today. We want this to be interactive, even though it's in a virtual setting. So we're going to be asking you some questions, and you are welcome to ask questions in the chat. We probably will get to them towards the end of our time together today. We're going to talk about some definitions and statistics around food waste, and then some tricks of what you can do to reduce food waste at home. Then we'll show a video on how to make broth using vegetable scraps, and that'll be followed by a Q&A. So our first question for the audience is, you can type this into the chat. What type of food do you think is thrown out the most in the United States? And I'm just gonna let everyone type into the chat and we'll get to the answer in a couple of slides. Okay.
Potatoes. All vegetable peelings.
Oh, I like all the interaction. Okay. So what is food waste? As you can see on the left-hand side here, those are plums and Brussels sprouts that actually came through our door through our food recovery program. And if you look at them, they're totally fine. Maybe they need a little bit of trimming, or you know, one out of all of them doesn't look good, but for the most part, they're totally fine and edible. If we hadn't picked them up, they could have ended up in the landfill. So food waste refers to edible food that is safe to eat, but that's thrown out. It often goes straight into the landfill, down the drain, or is simply left in the fields to rot. And food waste can happen at any stage in the supply chain, but the majority of it happens in our homes. And then there are a variety of food scraps. So what you can see on the other side, I have as edible food scraps, there are pumpkin seeds, broccoli stalks, which I treat the broccoli stalks almost the same as broccoli. Sometimes they just need a little trimming. Carrot peels, which can go nicely into salads or into soup. And lemon peels, which you can throw in your water to have a flavored spa water, or you can use it to brighten up your sauces that you're making. Inedible food scraps are things like banana peels, eggshells, apple cores, and those can be composted. One thing I did want to note about eggshells and coffee grounds, though, even though they can go into the compost, some people use them for different types of gardening. So that's just another way to decrease food waste and turn your scraps into another use. So we're going to talk about a couple of food waste facts in the United States. 80 billion pounds of food is thrown away each year, which is the equivalent of 1,000 Empire State Buildings. When we throw away food, we also waste all the water and energy used to produce, package, and transport food from the farm to our plates. This waste creates significant environmental impacts and is costly to our family budgets. The average household wastes 25% of the food that they buy, and a family of 4 throws away about $1,600 of food per year. Pretty crazy numbers, right? Food waste impact. So this picture that's on the right, this is actually taken from a food vendor in the East Bay, and it's a dumpster full of cucumbers. Wasted food is the equivalent to greenhouse gas emissions of 37 million cars and consumes 14% of all freshwater use. 1 in 6 Americans is food insecure, and edible food that's wasted could go to those that lack reliable access to sufficient, affordable, and nutritious food. Project Drawdown lists reducing food waste as the 3rd most impactful action, a major contributor to climate change. So we're going to find out the answer to what type of food do we think is thrown out most in the US. A lot of people noted vegetables, fruit. The answer is dairy products, and milk being one of the largest contributors that's thrown out. And especially during COVID, milk has been a really big issue in food waste because a lot of schools haven't been in session, and that's where a lot of our the milk production goes.
Great. We have Anna Bijour, did I pronounce her last name right? And Dana Williamson got the correct answer.
All right, thanks you guys. So now that we talked about a little bit of the doom and gloom, let's talk about what we can do to reduce our food waste at home. Reducing food waste is an easy way to trim your grocery bill and to reduce your environmental footprint. It only requires a few things, a few shifts in how to shop, prepare, and store and serve food. So the first thing I have here is to create an eat first section in your refrigerator. Actually, my box is in my refrigerator that I'm going to show you. Hold on.
This is reality TV.
You didn't know there was going to be so much action, did you? So here's my eat first box. It has a really ripe avocado, some cilantro, I have an egg white and some salsa, and these are all things that need to get used quickly. So we have an agreement in our house that everyone in the house knows it's the first place to look for a snack or when you're getting ready to cook a meal. It doesn't have to be this fancy. It could be a cardboard box. It could be really anything, but just a place marked in your refrigerator so you know where to look when something needs to get used up. The second thing is utilizing your freezer and keeping a list handy. So I really like lists, so maybe you won't go as crazy as I did here, but I have this chalkboard that I keep by my freezer that lists everything that we have in the freezer. So when we're getting ready to go grocery shopping, we're not overbuying anything. And also, as we just mentioned, milk is one of those things that often goes to waste. So it freezes very well. And if you know you're not going to get through your carton of milk, you can freeze it in smaller quantities and then use it at another time. The third thing is learning how to store your food efficiently. So there are tips for storing your fruits and veggies so they can live their longest life. A couple of examples: potatoes actually can be stored with an apple, and that will help reduce sprouting. And the opposite is if you store potatoes with onions, the onions are going to increase sprouting. So when you're storing potatoes, you want to keep those two things apart. For hardy greens or for lettuce, you want to wait to wash them before you use them to avoid having them getting mushy and brown inside of your veggie drawer. And there's lots of extra great tips on how to store your food correctly at stopfoodwaste.org. The fourth thing is understanding food dates. So often the use by or the sell by dates do not accurately indicate food safety. Besides those dates that are on infant formula and baby food, these dates are not federally regulated. So it's important to be able to determine food safety regardless of labeling. Use eatbydate.com for help. And if you're in doubt about the safety of your food, just use your senses. Your smell, your taste, and a visual inspection can help you determine your food's freshness. And then the fifth thing is making a grocery list and taking inventory before you're going shopping. You'll save money and food by not buying unnecessary ingredients. Okay, so next interactive thing for the chat is to type in what kind of ingredients in your home often go bad. It could be as specific as an ingredient or leftovers, and then I'll try to brainstorm some ideas to help you with that in a little bit. So I'm gonna let Riz take it away. He's going to play our food waste video, which is about turning vegetable scraps into broth. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Jen. Video coming up.
Hi everyone, I'm Chef Jen Franco and I am in my home kitchen in Oakland, California. And today we're going to talk about how to make broth. Broth is a light, flavorful liquid and it's usually made with vegetables. And today we're going to be talking about how to use food scraps and parts of the vegetable that you don't normally eat and make it into a delicious broth. So I wanted to show you how I set up my station when I'm cooking. I usually have my cutting board here and then I set 2 bowls next to me. When I'm cutting, say, onions or carrots and I have the tops or the peels, I put all the things that can go into my broth in one bowl and then things that I don't want to go into my broth into a different bowl. We'll talk more about that later. So after I'm finished cooking and I have my full bowl, I put it into a plastic bag or a container and I stick it in the freezer, and that's what we're going to use today. So let me grab it out of the freezer. This is what my full bag of scraps looks like. I wanted to talk about first the kinds of equipment that we need to make a broth. Obviously, you're going to need your vegetables. You need a stock pot or a pot that has some height to it. This is 6 quarts. You're going to need a wooden spoon or something to stir your stock. And then later on, we're going to strain it, and you'll need a pitcher and a colander and then some mason jars or some containers for the broth to go into. So let's look at what's in my bag. the onion that I couldn't use. I have the stems of parsley. I have the top of an onion. My onion came with a top on it from the farmer's market. I have pieces of the ends of asparagus that are too woody that you wouldn't eat them. I have the top of a turnip. And then there's things like stems of mushrooms. Yeah, you kind of get the hint. I have some skins that are from the garlic, and they're all gonna be, oh, this is the top of a green onion. So all of that is gonna just go directly into our pot. You wanna come look at it? It's all gonna squash down a little bit as I put water in it. And it's important that you put room temperature or cold water into your stock. It shouldn't be warm. You don't want it to get murky. And you just want to add enough water so it covers the vegetables. And you're gonna see that as we start heating this up and these vegetables start to cook, they're gonna kind of sink down. So you don't want to add too much water because you want to make sure that you're getting a lot of the flavors from the vegetables. So the other two things that I'm going to add to this are bay leaves. I'm just adding 2. And then these are black peppercorns. I'm just gonna add, I don't know, a little handful, I guess. So there's probably like maybe 12 or 15 peppercorns. And it just gives it a little bit of extra flavor. And then I'm gonna turn my stove on. Mine has numbers on it, so I'm gonna turn it to a 6. You don't want to bring your stock to a boil. What you're going to want to do is bring it up and then bring it down to a gentle simmer. And I'll show you when we get to that point so you guys can see exactly what it's supposed to look like. So you'll notice that I didn't add any salt to the stock. I prefer not to add salt because depending on what kind of dish that I'm going to make with this actual stock, I want to be able to control it. So if I'm going to make something like a soup and I've used roasted vegetables and those vegetables already have salt on them, then I don't want to add a salted broth that might make my entire dish too salty. So I save that for when I'm actually making the dish that the broth is going to go into. Let's talk about what we use broth for. I like to use it when I'm cooking rice. So instead of just using water, I'm using the broth, and you're getting additional nutritional value from that. If I'm cooking dried beans, I like to also use broth instead of water. Another thing that you can do with it is deglazing your pan. What does deglazing mean? So if you're making a stir fry or you're sauteing something and you notice that your vegetables or whatever you're cooking are starting to stick a little bit on the pan, you can add a little bit of broth to it, and it's going to help lift that up, and it's going to take some of the flavors that have gotten stuck onto your pan up and into your dish. One of the things that I really like about broth is that you're using the whole vegetable. So you bought an entire onion, you bought an entire carrot, you bought a whole bulb of garlic, you're using the whole thing. So for example, an onion, you're not going to use the skin, you're not going to eat the skins, but you can put it into your broth. So you're basically extracting all of the nutrition out of every single vegetable that you're using before it goes into the compost. It's a good food waste tip. Some of the vegetables that you can use in a broth or stock are carrots, celery, onions, garlic. Like you guys saw, I used the peels from those things. So if you peeled your carrots before you made something, then you can use the peels. You can use potato peels, parsnip peels, and same with garlic. You can use the skins from the garlic, and if you use herbs like parsley or cilantro, after you've removed the leaves from those for whatever you're using it for, you can put those into your stock as well, and it gives it a nice aromatic flavor, which is kind of just like, it brings a freshness to it. Things that you don't want to put in your stock, and the reason that you don't want to put these things in your stock is because they will dominate it. So it'll kind of like take over the flavor. You don't want to add things like leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and beets. You definitely don't want to add beets because beets will dye your entire stock red. So just when you're cooking and you have these two bowls, make sure that you're kind of thinking about what could be able to go into your broth and what probably shouldn't. Okay, you can see here it's kind of starting to bubble. Someone once told me that a simmer is like a smile and a boil is like laughing. So if you can kind of think of it that way, that might be helpful to figure out what your stock or your broth should cook at. Okay, and here we see the bubbling. So we're just gonna turn it down a little bit. I said before it was on a 6, now I'm gonna just move it to a 4. And you wanna see a little bit of movement, but you don't want it kind of bubbling over. And then we're gonna set our timer and we're gonna keep this going for about 45 minutes. Okay, so let's look at this broth. You can see that the vegetables have definitely cooked. Everything is wilted and it's been about 45 minutes. So I'm gonna, and look at the color, it's a very nice color. I'm gonna just stick my spoon in here and I'm just looking for like a flavorful stock. It's not gonna like take over or it's not gonna be overpowering, but it just should have some like flavors of vegetables and be pretty pleasant. So let's see. Okay, did the trick. So we're gonna turn off our stove and then we are going to strain the broth. You want to use a colander or a strainer that has the smallest sized little holes as possible. And this is a little bit of a balancing act, but I feel like when I put it into, or strain it into a pitcher, it's easiest to then put into jars. So I'm just gonna be really careful and try and get the majority of the broth in the pitcher. Okay, we'll start there. Look at this color. And then I'm gonna just put this into mason jars. Think about the end use of what your broth is going to be used for. So if you're gonna just use it in rice or something like that, or a grain, you might wanna put it into, you know, like 2-cup containers or something a little smaller. So I'm gonna pour it in here and I'm going to freeze some of this broth. So you wanna make sure that this has a fill line, but you want to, some things tell you, but others don't. You just want to make sure when it's going to cool and go into the freezer, it's going to expand. So you want to leave a little room in the top so it doesn't, the glass doesn't break. I'll fill this guy up too. Same thing, leaving a little bit of space in the top. So I'm just gonna sit these on the counter. I'm gonna let them cool all the way to room temperature. You don't wanna put anything in the refrigerator when it's still warm or hot. Then I'm gonna put lids on these and I'm not gonna screw them on too tight. And they'll either go into the refrigerator and freezer. And there you have it, you just made your own broth.
Back to Jen. Feel free to share.
Thank you, Chef Jen, for that demonstration by video. We had another question that may not have been answered. What about the cucumber skin? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I would not put cucumber skin just because it's watery and it might be kind of bitter. I've never tried it, but it wouldn't be on the top of my list. Sorry, I'm just having trouble sharing my screen. 1 second.
If other people have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat window. So a question was, what suggestions do you have for those things not good in broth, such as the broccoli, cabbage, and others that Chef Jen mentioned? I would say, while Chef Jen is figuring out the slides, I would say pickling is good. Cutting up in small bits and putting it in stir fry, putting it in fried rice. Those are probably good options. There are lots of things that we throw away that we really don't have to throw away, that they're perfectly edible, like the broccoli stems. And our other chef on staff, Chandler, has chimed in to say steaming and freezing is another option.
Okay, can everyone see my screen again? Yes, okay. So I was going to just respond to some of the things that people mentioned in the chat that they're having trouble using in their homes. One thing was lettuce. Something that you can do with lettuce is when you bring it home, take the core off and take apart individual leaves and wrap it in a little bit of damp paper towel. It needs a little bit of circulation, but it needs a little bit of dampness too. So try that, maybe that'll work for you. Avocados, something I like to do with avocados is if they're getting really ripe is I'll make a salad dressing out of them. So I'll just blend them with a little bit of olive oil. If I had yogurt, I could put that in there. Really just whatever, if you have some herbs that need to get used, you could throw that into a dressing. Someone had mentioned that they forget about their leftovers in the refrigerator and sometimes those go bad. You could do something similar to what I do with the freezer chalkboard and just have a piece of paper on the front of your refrigerator, and when you stick leftovers in there, just jot it down so you remember that they're in there. Cheese was another thing that was mentioned. I think when we get cheese from the grocery store, sometimes it's in plastic wrap, and that's actually not the best for the cheese because cheese needs a little bit of air as well. So something that's good when you bring it home, if it is in plastic, just take it out of that and wrap it in parchment paper, just loosely, and that will help protect it from drying out and hopefully from getting moldy as well. One other comment was about bread. You can use you could make croutons out of stale bread. Something that we do when we bring bread home is we put it in a large Ziploc bag, and that helps keep it soft. If you notice that your bread is getting stale, but it still looks okay, you can stick it in the oven for a couple of minutes, and that will help to soften it up, and then just slather some butter or whatever your topping of choice is, and it should still be okay to eat. Let's see. I saw some more. My chat disappeared. Are there some more questions?
Yeah, what to do with avocado when it's brown or when you cut it up and it's brown inside?
If it's brown inside, if at first when you cut it, if it's brown inside, it might be too ripe of an avocado to use. Sometimes it can taste a little bit funky, but if you open it up and it's green, to help it from browning, you can squeeze a little bit of citrus on it, so lime or lemon juice, and a little bit of salt, and that will help kind of intensify the flavor and also keep it from going brown.
Another chat question was, do you vacuum seal when freezing extra foods?
I don't have a vacuum sealer. I'm sure that you could, but I don't think that it's necessary.
Could you use the vegetables that that you cooked in the soup, and with eggs and cheese, and make like a frittata or a quiche? Can that be done, do you think, with the or are the vegetables really too cooked?
Well, they do get somewhat mushy when you cook them in the broth. Something that I have seen, and most of the nutrients are actually pulled out of them when they're cooked in the broth for that long. But one thing that I have seen people do is to take those veggies and to blend it and then put it into your soup, so it can make your soup kind of thick. It's like it acts as a thickener almost. And then you're still getting some of the fiber and everything that's in the veggies.
Thank you.
Sure. Oh, okay, now I can see my chat. Okay, the best way to freeze extra parsley or cilantro. I think the best way to, or one way that I like to do it is I'll mince it up really finely, and then I'll put it in ice cube trays with oil. Yes. You already answered your question. Then you could also put it with a little bit of butter, and if you wanted to make garlic bread, or if you wanted to make garlic bread, you could take the ice cube out of the freezer, let it defrost, and then put it over bread and stick it in the oven. Or if you were making a soup or doing a saute or something like that, you could just pop the ice cube straight into your pan, let it melt, and then you'll have kind of an infused flavor already started. You can do the same with garlic actually too. You could put garlic in with the herbs, or you could do it separately, and then you'd have like a garlicky, oily base to get your dishes started. What about a zucchini that has gone soft, white spots on the outside? I would say that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, but maybe if it has white spots on the outside, I would try peeling it. One thing that I like to do with zucchini that's a little on the soft side sometimes is just to grate it. If you grate it on the fine part of a peeler or a box grater, you can stick it into a salad, or I've put it into like hot pasta, so it kind of cooks a little bit in there. And that's a good way to use it. And it's okay if it doesn't have the skin on. Let's see, any suggestions of what to do with whey from leftover after I make Greek yogurt at home? Ooh. I don't have an answer for that. Chandler, do you? Or anyone else on the FoodShift team? Anyone in the audience actually could answer if they have an idea.
Yeah, I think Erin said using smoothies. I usually use it because I don't drink milk. I don't have dairy. I would put it in like eggs when I'm scrambling eggs, and sometimes a little dairy helps. So I would put yogurt, whey in there.
Okay.
Soups.
I'm just going to move my slide to question and answer, because that's where we are. And I just wanted to point out, we'll still keep going through questions. But I did want to point out that all of these dishes here that are pictured are from the FoodShift kitchen. And all of these are dishes that we made with recovered produce that had come in. So as you can see, it's beautiful, colorful. Sometimes you just have to get a little bit creative. Is powdered milk just as good as regular? I actually don't know the answer to that question either. I'm not sure what are you asking about the nutritional value or the flavor? I really don't know the answer to either one, though. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, I was asking more about the use of it, because milk just doesn't stay. We don't drink milk, but a lot of times you need milk, and so I keep powdered milk in my cabinet just for those purposes. And I'm just wondering if that's just as good.
I think that it would
cooking.
probably be just fine. Yeah, especially if you're cooking it. I don't know what it would taste like if you were putting it into your coffee, but if it's part of a dish, I think that would be okay.
Yeah, Andy, I use powdered milk a lot, not a lot, but especially for baking and ingredients.
Yeah, that's normally what I need it for too. Okay.
How safe is it to eat vegetables, green onions, etc., if it looks slippery or looks like it's rotting? Again, I would just use your senses. So if it's a little too stinky or if it just feels a little too slippery, I would maybe put it into the compost bin, but it's definitely up to you. I don't think that it's necessarily unsafe if you don't see, if it's not moldy, but yeah, I think it just depends what you feel comfortable with eating. Is it okay to eat cauliflower that has gotten brown? Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes what I'll do is just like shave off the brown part. And usually if you just take like a teeny tiny little layer off the top, it's white right underneath and it's totally fine. So I would say yes. Okay, these were in response to the whey. If a fruit has been damaged or look like an insect got into part of the apple, is it, I don't know what SAG means, but
Safe, I think, maybe.
oh, safe. Okay. I didn't know if it was an acronym that I didn't know. I think it's okay. Maybe I would cut the apple in half and eat the side that didn't have the insect in it, or it looked like it hadn't been infiltrated by an insect. But yeah, I think that it should be okay. I would give it a good wash as well. Leah commented, you can drink the whey as a beverage, stir it up, and it's refreshing. Okay, and Chandler says whey dehydrate for a shelf-stable option. Oh, interesting. Okay. Powdered milk to make yogurt and it comes out fine. Oh, I love how everyone is chiming in and offering their food waste tips as well. Is it safe to eat rice that has been filled with tiny bugs as long as we wash it off? I would say no on that. I won't get into too much detail, but the insects can sometimes lay eggs and those aren't as easy to see. So I would say to get rid of the rice just to be on the safe side and to avoid eating something that you might not want to eat. Okay, so we have about 5 more minutes. Let's see. Can you tell us more about the mission of FoodShift and how we can support? Excellent question, Tina. That's actually our last slide here. And Tina, I'm going to go back to the FoodShift question in just a minute. And I wanted to ask about or answer this question about spices. Spices normally last if they're stored properly. I would say they're at their best after at most a year. But I don't think that necessarily means they might lose their potency, but I don't think that means that you should throw them away. I think keep them and still use them as long as they still have some flavor. Oh, and Erin suggested using old spices for a bath soak like rosemary and lavender. Oh, that sounds amazing. I would suggest that too. Okay, I'll just wait for like another question. Are white mushrooms okay to eat if squishy and beginning to discolor? Again, it kind of depends how squishy they are. If they're starting to get a little on the soft side, I think that's okay. But if you say you push on it and that your finger can like indent it, I would say maybe that's gone a little too far. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. So if you can buy spices in bulk, so you only get what you need and you will use in a few months, that's a really good tip as well. So as we're closing up, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. I wanted to say thank you to Trevande for inviting us, and to my FoodShift team who has been supporting me today. And we would love for everyone to stay involved in our work and to sign up for our newsletter. As you can see here, our website is listed, and we have a cookbook that's going to be coming out in the spring that's going to be focused on our apprentices that have worked in our kitchens with us and telling their stories about food. And also there's going to be some food waste components to the cookbook as well. And the art, as you can see to the right, we have a volunteer artist who is amazingly talented. His name is Colin Kimsey, and this is his artwork, and he's going to be one of our artists in the new cookbook. So stay tuned for that. And if you would like to support our mission of transforming surplus food into opportunities, please consider donating to FoodShift. And here's the website to donate as well. It's been really great spending time with everyone, and thank you so much. Does anyone have any last things to add? Can we pre-order the cookbook? Yuka?
We'll take your name down to make sure we can contact you when the cookbook is ready.
Okay.
So thank you. This is very informative.
Thank you.
You're
so much.
welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you.
Thank you, Yuka. Thank you, Reese. This is so amazing. We so appreciate your support. Before people take off, if you can do a very, very quick poll for us so we can help bring more sessions to the community day. Just launch a quick poll.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yuka. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Jen, this is a
Thank you.
wonderful
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I don't know if you know that, but we serve lunches here. We do 400 lunches here at the Senior Center to go. And we have partnered with Vegan Food Aid, and they give us free fruits and vegetables and vegan food on Mondays, so we can give that to the seniors every week. So this was a great presentation. So if you guys ever want, we have a full industrial kitchen. So we're trying to figure out how to get people in here to do live demonstrations for Zoom. So keep that in mind.
Okay.
This is great, everything, because I have volunteered before with soup kitchens, and I have seen them use food that you normally don't think you would eat, but you end up seeing it. And you see the people that are food insecure, and they love it. They love the idea that they can eat things that, may look a little bit not quite perfect to sell in the store, but it sure feeds them well. I'm very happy about that, to learn more.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your Zoom day.
We will.
Yeah.
Taxes.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.